Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And a wonderful morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And the day after May Day, we've got a rather vociferous critique of various matters. Joining us on our set, Mr. Pratibha Mahanama Heva. Very good morning to you.
Very good morning, Faraz.
And thank you very much for being on Newsline.
Thank you.
We certainly appreciate your presence and your commitment, actually, to bettering the governance that we have in our country.
Definitely.
But following on yesterday's undoubtedly very successful May Day rallies, in the plural, I think we can agree that all the organizers of all the rallies would have been exceptionally happy.
Definitely.
Because they were all very well attended.
Yes.
And of course, the challenge at Golf Face Green was very well met. And there was a sea of heads and so on. But, Mr. Mahanama, what does this all mean? What does it mean?
Yeah. Now, actually, if you do a postmortem with regard to all May Day rallies, now these May Day rallies, rather than coming up with a 2-year policy or rather than some type of work plan for the working class in this country, I have seen one thing: challenging the other party as well as certain mudslinging. All political parties in a May Day should do one thing for the next year. What's their plan for the working class in this country?
Exactly.
And some, they accepted the challenge. The challenge was given by the ruling party, basically show whether you have hits. So they have successful in that challenge, we have seen. But the main issue is still pending. Because the main thing I have seen, cost of living for us in this country. What were their plan to bring down the essential items of all these foods in this country? No. Some were talking about constitution, some were talking about socialism building in this country within these 2 years, and some were talking about all the agenda, and certain parties were asking the good governance. I have seen the best definition given by Kofi Annan, the UN Secretary General. He said one thing: people participation is necessary in a country because people participation they get by voting. So no elections now. Now see how many years these municipality council elections were postponed. All these garbage issues, now people are suffering. You can't put everything on the pressure for the commissioner.
Some people are dead.
Some people did, definitely. Now the commissioner is liable. You know, according to the Act, Municipality Council Act, commissioner can't take certain decisions. The council should be there. If this council is not set up, it's a bad thing for the good governance. So only the commissioner can't take some legal decisions. So the garbage is one of the issues we have seen. So immediately we need even have elections and set up the municipality council as well as Pradeshia Sabhas, because people aspiration is there. That's why Kofi Annan said time to time people participation is by voting for the government, and these things can be certain. That's why the alarm given, this May Day rally, there was an alarm given from certain left parties as well as this Golf Face rally. Hey, look here, now you have to fulfill the promises given as well as. I have seen another thing. Where is the collective responsibility in this government? One minister say we abolish SITA. One minister say no, we are protecting SITA. And other issues, give me 2 minutes. And other issues basically about the constitution. The first one is coming referendum. And the other side is there will be a side no referendum. And we are going. So what people should believe? For us, tell me one thing. People should believe ministers, or people should believe cabinet, or people should believe prime minister or the president. No, this is a mess. That's why the collective responsibility, even the Honorable Speaker and others, should give a good training for the cabinet how to come up with the collective decision. This is suffering for investment.
Answer this, Mr. Mahanama. Why on earth is the comments coming from ministers, why isn't it limited to their area of work? Why do we have the Minister of Health? I'm just picking up a name, okay? The Minister of Health. Why is he talking about fisheries matters? And why is the fisheries man talking about telecom? And why is the telecom man not talking about telecom? Or providing the salary details of somebody or other? You know, so what I'm saying is, why, I mean, in our organization, you won't have the cameraman talking about, I don't know, marketing, right? Because everybody is doing their thing, which they're good at. And today we have a cameraman, Mr. Veere, who's very good at doing what he does. But we have a producer who's probably no good on the camera. But these ministers, they're all commenting over each other and contradicting. We had Ravi Karunanika proposing to pay the Sri Lankan Airlines settlement at $154 million. And then only for Kabir Hashim to cry out loud and say, but you know, I've been left behind, I'm the subject minister, and we didn't agree. And then 2 days later he's changed his mind. But why is that? Why are they...
Shall I add one thing?
Yeah.
All these ministers' voice finally by the Prime Minister. If any question asked in Parliament, who raise hands and who is answering? Give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
Lot of questions were asked by the subject minister or the line minister.
Yeah.
Who stood up? The Prime Minister.
Right.
That means he's getting the training of executive Prime Minister. In future, what is going to happen? Definitely they are trying to abolish President, that is office. I am not sure whether it's going to come up. So the best thing is to get a training. So this Parliament, Prime Minister is using how to use his powers as the executive Prime Minister. That's why today also leading headlines in the UNP May Day rally also what they said. We are coming up with a new constitution. The proposals are coming up under that. So in future, as you said, ministers contradicting each other, no. The one and only voice may come up with Prime Minister.
The Super Minister.
Super Minister. And also you have seen certain things. Now I'll come answer to your question. Why subject ministers are not talking about their subject and concerned about other ministers' subject? How many ministers are there in this cabinet? Or non-cabinet ministers and deputy ministers? Believe 95 there. More to be appointed. And these appointments are coming after the May Day rally, what they have seen.
It's a poor performance.
Poor performance, and see the country where we are going for the development. And the other thing I like to say, now this ministerial, there was a big ha-ho in Sri Lanka, reshuffle. President said in certain places in Hambantota and downtown, one of the minister will give the super post. But he can't do it. President, Honorable President, former President, and Ranasinghe Premdas said one thing, peon. Prime Minister post is a peon. No, today Prime Minister post is the supreme post in this country. Even President can't do anything. President can't take any decision because they have a hold. If you reshuffle, we'll withdraw from this government. So that is where the reality and the problems are coming.
But that is the reality of any unity government.
Any unity government. But on the other side, how many countries our leaders visited and requested the investment? No investment is coming because there is no sustainability as well as continuously the going concern we can't see even for the next 5 years. These are the issues they must address.
I want to go back to this business about the very well attended rallies in May Day rallies yesterday. They were all full. Let's not talk about size. Campbell Park was a small cricket ground. Gatton Bay, forget the size.
Okay.
But they were all well attended. Okay, Bald-Face was overflowing. It's a good job there was a sea on one side because otherwise that would have been full. Right now, what does this mean? I was told yesterday, some people said that it's usual to have a lunch packet and half a bottle and so on. So in my mind, and in the mind of a colleague of mine who's from the UK, we were wondering if this was just a free picnic. And so did these people know where they were going, what they were doing?
If I like to add another thing, all these highways were free of charge. And some trains were there, buses were there. All these actually a picnic. Those who participated in these May Day rallies, whether they had a real idea what we are going to do in the May Day rally. No. Buses were there and they were invited, as well as usual thing in Sri Lanka, this biryani lunch packet, as well as this half bottle, as well as other things. So this is where not basically working class. These are all supporters and they were gathering in one aspiration. And some were with a vision, because they need certain elections, they want to reduce the prices as well as to please their leaders in future. So one thing we can say, many participated with one thing, it's a free day, a free trip from toll free, as well as trains were free and they were invited. This is a bribe. This is a bribe. If someone can complain to bribery and corruption, why all these days these highways were charging, why only they gave free trip? You have to see that. Not only that, there are several other things, because they like to see Colombo, they like to see Kandy, they like to see other areas. So that's why even a poor person, it's very hard to afford to go for a trip to see Kandy, Dalada Maliga.
So therefore, when they're poor, isn't it a nice thing to do, to give them a free picnic?
That's why I'm telling, these May Day rallies are really showing the political powers of the leaders.
Not the powers of the working.
No. In any stage, have you ever seen the front any trade union leader? Any trade union activities? All are full of, not only one political party. So all political party rallies were actually dominated by political leaders. There were some rallies, but very poor attendance.
That's a good point you make.
These are the issues we have to see. But in other countries, you see, Germany, and even in Russia, I have seen all these not political leaders. Putin is not taking part, but others are coming. So therefore, even the next day rally, first rows and front rows should be given to trade union leaders because of their energy. And now who is collecting the garbage? Let's see after the May Day rally, where are the leaders? And today, frontline newspapers, you can see innocent laborers, once again, another 364 days, what they do, collecting garbage and doing their job. They say the king of May Day rallies are laborers or the working class. That is only for how many minutes. Thereafter, the same thing is going to diminish. So everyone must think who is doing all these things. That's why there are a lot of arguments coming up with international labor organizations, see their welfare. Even the labor minister was talking what? Not the welfare of the employees, reduce the price of extra special rack bottle. So why these are coming up?
But
the president is saying one thing, he is saying one thing.
But do you think in any of these rallies, it was mentioned, and bearing in mind that it's International Workers' Day, that did anybody ever think of mentioning what is happening to the workers of this country in terms of the EPF contributions? Because obviously, with the bond scam, we are told that the EPF lost so many billions of rupees, 9.5 billion in estimated losses. Then the fact that the EPF were trading in the secondary market and not on the primary market, and making investments in various, shall we say, way over the value shares. And these are all losses, people's losses. Did anybody mention any of this?
Left May Day rallies I have seen, specifically in the BRC ground, the JP rally. The main slogan was this bond scam. And also I have seen Gold-Faced rally also, they have mentioned specifically with this EPF and ETF. All these parties, those who are in the opposition and against the government, they make their voice and they raise their voice with regard to that. But finally what is happening? Now I'll give one example. We are talking about this bond scam. There is a commission. Is that a powerful commission? I am not consulting. This is not a defamatory statement. No powers. The president should appoint a commission which can punish. There were commission before that. This is only a fact-finding mission. So what is at the end? What you have seen? That's why the first day also I told you there is a criminal action easily taken by the Attorney General. He had enough evidence. But what is happening finally? Showing That is only. So in future, at least I request from the government, appoint any powerful commission which can punish. Other than that's in vain. I think today one of the JP lead is going to give evidence. Before that we have seen Gunasekara giving evidence. Even that the defendant is dominating in that commission. I think the commission also warned him not to do like that. See, in that case, what you want to do, one thing, dragging the time off for another 1.5 years.
Masters of procrastination.
That's right. That's right. And the EPF one.
Yeah.
Now look here, according to what slogans we are acting, this custom ordinance going to amend. And who has given the draft? Luckily some of the ministers were against that. Now some of the ministers even showing their, basic opposition, but what prime ministers? They go with that. And today they say we fill all these oil tanks with what? Indian. So they promised not to give because of the trade union action, but it is going on the other side.
But they have. There was an interesting article in the Island about this MOU.
Yeah.
Apparently in England there is a guideline on how to draw up an MOU and what words not to use.
Yes.
Because if you use certain words, it confers an almost legal binding statement or a contract. And so an MOU is necessarily not supposed to be a legally binding contract. But apparently, according to that article in the Island, the MOU signed in India by the Minister of International Trade, not the PM, apparently uses the words that you're not supposed to be using in an MOU.
That's right.
Right? So the Prime Minister on the one hand assured the union people that he won't be signing anything until it is transparently discussed and so on. So technically the Prime Minister has kept his word because he didn't sign, it was Malik who signed. Is that fair?
Do you know the principal agent theory? On behalf of the principal agent can sign.
Yes.
But before that, I like to give you the legal definition of MOU and contract.
Yeah.
Now, contracts are basically legal binding. MOU, the legal principle behind that, MOUs are not legally binding. Right. But certain provisions, you can say clause 1, 2, 3, legal binding.
Right.
So therefore, legal MOU means if you want to get one party to a contract, if you are not sure about that party, that standstill clause is there. What is standstill clause? He can't negotiate the same thing with another party until that period. So MOUs are not basic legal binding, but if there are clauses, they are legal binding. Then I come to the other thing. Maybe Prime Minister not has signed, but if Prime Minister can give advice, Prime Minister can give instruction. So on behalf of the government, if anyone sign, it may be Prime Minister, it may be the Minister of International Trade, final binding clauses coming to the government or the Sri Lanka state, not personally Prime Minister. He can come and say, hey, look here, my hands are very clean, I have never signed.
But Prime Minister is always saying this.
This is not International Trade Minister's private contract. Is it a private contract?
That's what I'm coming to. Now in there, at the beginning of this MOU, it says duly signed by their duly authorized officer or whoever.
Okay.
What do you mean by duly authorized? Who would duly authorize the minister to do this?
Minister of International Trade basically signing bilateral agreements.
Yes, but duly authorized by whom?
Duly authorized by President or Prime Minister.
So there must be something in writing.
This must be discussed in the cabinet.
Right.
Because personally you can't sign anything. If you sign anything, it is binding.
Yeah.
Now look here. Minister give instruction. Who signed? The secretary, permanent secretary.
Right.
That means the minister is not responsible. No, the responsibility is there.
Yeah.
That is you call vicarious responsibility in legal terms. What do you mean by vicarious responsibility? Even your employee sign, the employee is responsible. So there are a lot of legal scenario.
That's very interesting. Say that again. Vicarious responsibility is
vicarious liability.
Yes.
Vicarious liability means if in the scope of the employment, if employee sign any document or done any action, negligent or not, the employer is responsible. So respondent number 1, employer; respondent number 2, employee. That is the legal scenario.
So if the employee sends a deliberately misleading letter,
still,
and to a government department,
yes,
and that letter is then, and later transpires that is a fraudulent statement, the employer will be responsible.
Excellent question. Within the scope of employment and official capacity.
Right.
Even he has done something, responsibility. I'll give a simple example.
Yeah.
In your organization, you have emails.
Yeah.
Now, your official email address used by your employee and sending a harassment statement or a defamatory statement.
Yeah.
If you don't have a disclaimer clause, your boss also liable, you also liable. Then you must have a disclaimer clause. This email contents solely owned by the author. Right. Otherwise, that responsibility is there. You can't escape these things because these are all legal scenarios in the commercial field. So that's why I'm saying MOU, even you can put a legal clause. But MOUs are until you sign a proper legal validity contract to get the legal expectation and stop this party negotiating with another party is a binding document.
I see. Well, I'm glad that I'm asking you these questions because these are the questions that keep arising. And so when the usual form, before a minister or government official goes abroad to sign some agreement,
correct,
he or she must be duly authorized.
Definitely. That's why legal advisors are there. That's why Honorable Attorney General is there. Individually you can't act. The minister is there. The minister's secretary is there. Legal advisors, legal department. But there are some documents. This is the big issue we have. United Nations Human Rights Council, the Minister of Foreign Affairs had pledged certain things which is not deliberately in this government opinion.
Yes, so, why is that? On what grounds can you say that?
That's why I'm telling, even he is so powerful in this situation, he says certain things. In good faith, I made this statement. In good faith. So, if you use the word in good faith to protect certain things, later retrospectively binding, you know retrospective binding, that is where ratification coming in the later stage. So, if not ratified, still whatever the Minister of Foreign Affairs said is not binding. So, you have to be very careful. When you are working with other people, the responsibility should come finally with the cabinet as well as the minister's work bind. That's why we need collective responsibility, which is diminishing or actually depreciating in this government we have seen. But in other countries, they are very, very clearly watching what is happening in Sri Lanka before they decide to invest in this country. And also I will like to see one thing. So RTI Act is there. Now RTI Act, I can make a complaint. Most of the time...
Well, what's the procedure?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
First stage, we will ask a request from the information officer. Information officer denied to give the information. Within 14 days, I can appeal to the designated officer. Who is the designated officer? Maybe secretary or additional secretary. Even designated officer, within a particular time period, he denied, I can go and file a case in the RTI Commission. When I file the case in the RTI Commission, if they also don't give a answer, then we have to go for a writ in the Court of Appeal. So certain things we have seen, even this organization has asked certain information from the Ministry of Digital and Technology Ministry, but not given. So appeal, we go for a case in the commission, and these are the things. But one thing is there, they badly misuse the word sensitive information. What are your sensitive information? If I am a public officer, if I draw salaries from the government, it is not basically sensitive information. Look here for us, 2017, February 3rd, there is a special gazette notification issued. All public officers, details and salaries must go to the web. This is called proactive disclosure. Many ministries, they have not done it. So what's the Minister of Mass Media and those who are responsible of this? First thing, come up with the disclosure, proactive disclosure, inform all your things in government website. Until that, I believe RTI Act is not a reality of implementing in this country.
In Britain, I know this for a fact, within the councils, which is the local authorities,
correct,
if any official of the council entertains somebody, that ambassador county council anyway, it happens, it is published on the website almost immediately.
Definitely.
The name of the person, the company, everything. That is to ensure that there is no undue influence exerted or given to any particular contractor or company or whoever. That's transparency. Do you think that Sri Lanka will ever have that?
Sri Lanka still we don't have, because of many things are restricted. In this RTI Act, rather than disclosing, my interpretation is they cover it up because they put certain restrictions. But as a good governance, I totally believe with you. I totally agree with you. Whatever the expenses, wherever they go, all these things immediately should put up as their state expenditures. If these state expenditures are not putting, basically go to the bribery and corruption.
Thank you for that. Now there's another quick matter, and because you've got a legal mind, I'll ask you that. Now it's to do with these the budget proposals and the amendments. Now it has not been put through Parliament, so they've been unable to enact it and bring it into play. But that is at odds with the IMF. The IMF are now not releasing the next tranche of money because they say, well, you implement those budget proposals first.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Do you think, I have a suspicious mind, do you think that this is a deliberate attempt to not pass it through Parliament so that we will then, they know perfectly well that the IMF are not going to give us the money until they do this. Therefore, now we've got to have to go and borrow some money. And we are now told that the government is looking to borrow $2.5 billion US.
That's the only option, alternative they have.
Yes, but isn't it a poor thing?
That's a poor thing.
If they had passed it in Parliament, the IMF would have given us the money. But because they didn't do it, the IMF are not giving us the money. Therefore, in the gap period, we have to go and borrow. Somebody somewhere will obviously be earning the commission. I wonder if there's a company in Singapore that is sort of facilitating the purchase or the borrowing of this money.
That's why I'm going to tell you. Governor Central Bank said it's a wise decision to sell Port City or Port Harbour in Hambantota. Why is he telling like that? Because this is the reality. But this is a sovereign country. We should have our own production and other things. But we have actually got into a trap. To escape this, something you have to say to China, something you have to say to India, something you have to say to Singapore. That is the end.
So soon there'll be nothing else to sell.
Nothing else for Sri Lanka. That's the issue. That's why the slogans are coming up. That's why the general public against, that's why they are agitating to come up with a public policy which both parties can go for a win-win situation.
But we really need to have a very strong public policy on this.
Definitely. This public policy, everyone, private sector, public sector, NGO sector, all must come up and draft. But remember, another 24 days only we are having to end of this government. Before that you have to come up. Even the next government must implement, rather than looking it is a political agenda. It must be a state agenda. See what happened to Donald Trump. How many times he tried to put his declaration. When it went to courts, all these were rejected. So it that's a very good example.
Very good example. Very good example. The independence of the judiciary. And how they have stood by their rules.
But in Sri Lanka, there are a lot of issues. Once again, rule of law.
Well, we have former ministers not having one, not two, but three different passports.
See. The biggest controversial issues are appointing judges today. So these are whether the independent 19th Amendment, where is the Constitution Council? They must come and raise their voice and see whether these are properly, and with the legal word, due process. Due process. If that is done according to the law and due process, everything good. But still we have not seen that.
So message finally to the public is to be mindful of due process.
Definitely.
That's very key, isn't it?
That's right. Be vigilant. Be vigilant every time.
And pay attention to the March the 12th declaration.
Definitely, it should come.
Which
The
is
only
think
signatures.
before you vote.
Everyone
Think before you
sign,
vote.
but not fulfilling. So, one thing rather than the law, are we ethical? Are we honest? Are we loyal to the country? That's my final message.
Pratibha Mahanamaheva, thank you very much for being on Newsline. We appreciate your presence. And that's it from Newsline. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow morning, helping you stay connected. Take care. God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.